Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giravadadhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giravadadhari Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva. Jaya Om Vishnu Parabhamsa Parvakshaya Asatarshata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jaya Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnu Parabhamsa Parvakshaya Asatarshata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Parāyaṇam. Anyway, wouldn't you know it, right when I'm on the spot, this is what happens. Your memory goes... So anyway, all glory to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shishi Guru and Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you all for coming here. This was very unexpected. I have one rule that I'm breaking as of today, and that is I never give class in Vrindavan. Every time I come here, I'm always asked to give class. And I always say, no, I'm here simply to absorb the vibration of the holy Dham. I'm simply here to relish the nectar of the classes, to relish the vision of the deities, absorb the vibration of the holy Dham, and take as much with me as I can when I go back to the West. So today I'm breaking that rule. My health isn't as good as it used to be. So I'm not sure how many times I could ever come back to Vrindavan, so I figured, they asked me now, they want me to give a class, so I figured, okay, this is maybe my last chance to inflict my materialistic vibration out on everybody else. So I better take advantage of it. But anyway, we'll get started now. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're just going to go through verses, Canto 10, Chapter 80, verse 10 and 11. Verse 10 has no purport, so we'll go through that rather quickly, if that's okay. And I have to hold the book up because my eyes aren't even as good as they used to be. Sutam upaihi mahā-bhaga. Sādhūnāṁ ca parāyaṇam. Dāsyati draviṇaṁ bhūri. Sīdate te kuṭumbine. Word for word is tam, him. Upaihi, approach. Mahā-bhaga, O fortunate one. Sādhūnāṁ, O saintly devotees. Cha, and para-ayaṇam, the ultimate shelter. Dāsyati, he will give. Draviṇaṁ, wealth. Bhūri, plentiful. Sīdate, suffering. Te, to you. Kuṭumbine, who are maintaining a family. Translation, O fortunate one, please approach him, the real shelter of all saints. He will certainly give abundant wealth to such a suffering householder as you. Repeat after me. O fortunate one, please approach him, the real shelter of all saints. He will certainly give abundant wealth to such a suffering householder as you. Text 11. We'll do this the more proper way, I guess you could say that. āste, dhunā, dvāravatyāṁ, āste, dhunā, dvāravatyāṁ, bhoja-vṛṣṇy-andhakeśvaraḥ, bhoja-vṛṣṇy-andhakeśvaraḥ, smarata para-ayaṇam, dkmlm, atmanam api yuchyate, atmanam apyuchyate, kim vṛin arta kaman bhajato, kim navarta kaman bhajo, Nitya abhishtan jagadguru, not just bhishtam jagadguru, āste dhunā dvāravatyāṁ, bhoja-vṛṣṇy-andhakeśvaraḥ, smarata para-ayaṇam, atmanam apyuchyate, kim nivarta kaman bhojato, natyabhishtam jagadguru. Anybody else? All right. Āste is present, abund, now. Draviṇaṁ at Dwarka, bhoja-vṛṣṇy-andhaka, of the bhojas, vrishnis, and andhakas. Ishvara, the Lord, smarataha, to one who remembers, dkmlm, his lotus feet. Atmanam, himself, api, even, vācchati, he gives. Kimnu, what then to speak of? Arta, economic success. Come on, and sense gratification. Bhajata, to one who worships him. Na, not. Ati, very much. Abhishtan, desirable. Jagat, of the whole universe. Guru, the spiritual master. Translation: Lord Krishna is now the ruler of the bhojas, vrishnis, and andhakas, and is staying in Dwarka, since he gives even his own self to anyone who simply remembers his lotus feet. What doubt is there that he, the spiritual master of the universe, will bestow upon his sincere worshipper prosperity and material enjoyment, which are not even very desirable? Repeat after me. Lord Krishna is now the ruler of the bhojas, vrishnis, and andhakas, and is staying at Dwarka, since he gives even his own self to anyone who simply remembers his lotus feet. What doubt is there that he, the spiritual master of the universe, will bestow upon his sincere worshiper prosperity and material enjoyment, which are not even very desirable? Purport. The Brahman's wife here implies that since Lord Krishna is the ruler of the bhojas, vrishnis, and andhakas, if these opulent rulers merely acknowledge Sudama's as a personal friend of Krishna's, they could give him everything he required. In this connection, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti comments that since Lord Krishna had at this point put aside his weapons, he no longer traveled outside his own capital of Dwarka. Thus, Srila Prabhupada writes in Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Brahman's wife said, I have heard that he never leaves his capital city of Dwarka. He is living there without outside engagements. So as mentioned herein, material wealth and sense gratification are not very desirable. The reason for this is that in the long run, they give no real satisfaction. Still, Sudama's wife thought even if Sudama went to Dwarka and simply remained silent before the Lord, he would certainly give him abundant wealth as well as shelter at his lotus feet, which was Sudama's real objective. Om Jnanatirmandasya Gnanjana Salakaya Chakshun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. And to all you assembled Vaishnavas, Panchakalpa Trubhastra Kipasandubhye Bachapatitanam Payavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I offer my obeisances to you because you're all doing what I would like to do, which is to serve Krishna in the holy Dham. Of course, you never know what the future might hold. But the point here is that, as I'll go through the purport again, the Brahman's wife here implies that since Lord Krishna is the ruler of the bhojas, vrishnis, and andhakas, if these opulent rulers merely acknowledged Sudama as a personal friend of Krishna's, they could give him everything he required. So any ruler, any president, any monarch, he could give whatever his subjects desired if they wanted to, like that. So in this connection, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti comments that since Lord Krishna had, at this point, put aside his weapons, in other words, he was no longer fighting to maintain the universe or his kingdom or anything like that. He no longer traveled outside his own capital of Dwarka. Thus, Srila Prabhupada writes in Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Brahman's wife said, I have heard that he never leaves his capital, Dwarka. He is living there without outside engagements. In other words, if Sudama went there, he is bound to meet with Krishna because Krishna is not going anywhere else. So she's trying to convince her husband, Sudama, that yes, if you go to Vrindavan, you will certainly see Krishna. As mentioned here, material wealth and sense gratification are not very desirable. They're not very desirable because they have no real contact with the soul. The soul is only satisfied with that which relates to the soul on a spiritual level. Anything else is never very satisfying for the soul, and there is no point in pursuing such endeavors. But, let's face it, householders are always in need of funds. They have to fund their wife, their family, their house, their home, so they're in a constant state of struggle to maintain themselves nicely. So in this case, the reason, still I should say, Sudama's wife thought even if Sudama went to Dwarka and simply remained silent before the Lord, he would certainly give him abundant wealth as well as shelter at his lotus feet, which was Sudama's real objective. So Sudama, he didn't care so much about material wealth or anything like that. He simply wanted to get Krishna's association, become more spiritually enlivened by such association, and continue with his life. He was only going there at the request of his wife. But sometimes Krishna talks through other people. So in this case, Krishna was talking through his wife because Krishna wanted to see Sudama. This is the difference. So sometimes we plan on something and something else takes place, but then something else happens which was more spectacular than our original plan, because Krishna changes things like that. So I can especially relate to this need, because this is a story that just happened to me. Recently, a few months ago, I was feeling like, my health is going down. I mean, I used to travel around and give talks at conferences and give lectures and things like that. And I can't travel as much as I used to. And it's very painful to stand in long lines, take flights and things like that. I mean, just for your information, I have what's called degenerative disc disease. It's an old man's disease. When the disc in the back begin to degenerate, then it pinches on the nerves, and then you're always in pain. So especially long lines or walking like that becomes very difficult. So I was praying to Krishna, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do next. How can I serve you? How can I, perform like I used to, give talks, preaching work, glorify Prabhupada, glorify you, Lord Krishna. And because, our deities in Detroit is Radha Kunja Bihari. So when I sing Jaya Radha Kunja Bihari, it's very touching for me because they're known to be very merciful. In fact, I wrote a book about it called The Power of Shishi Radha Kunja Bihari, with a number of interviews with devotees who have experienced the power of these deities, fulfilling their needs and desires in certain ways that uplifts them spiritually. So, I could give a whole class about that, but many things have happened to show the mercy of these deities. So I was praying to them, and I was praying to my own deities at home. I have some Gornitai deities from Ekachakra, nice big Gornitai deities that I brought back from a visit to Ekachakra years ago, which is the birthplace of Lord Nityananda. And so I was praying to them like this, and I was feeling like Devi was saying, it's feeling like I was all washed up. Like I wasn't going anywhere, I wasn't doing much anymore. I've already done a lot of preaching work and stuff, written a lot of books, but I felt like I wasn't in my prime anymore. So what happened was, not long after that, I got an award for a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Hindu Mandir Empowerment Council for 50 years of temple management. I've been involved in managing temples for 50 years now, which is in some ways incredible, but also it puts a spot on the age. You're getting older, you're not what you used to be. And then a week after that, I got an award for contributions to the Hindu community, the global Hindu community, and the Indian diaspora in America from the Vishva Hindu Parishad of America. So that was encouraging. But what really flipped my lid was 4 months later, I got a call from the Indian embassy in Washington, D.C. And this was like January 24th, I believe it was. Yeah, the evening of January 24th. And, it was at 11:30 at night, they called me. And I was already asleep, and the phone rang, and I'm thinking like, who in the heck is calling me at this time of night? Well, should I even answer it? And then I get up and I see on the ID, Indian Embassy. So I'm immediately thinking the worst of all things. I'm thinking like, oh man, I did it now. I'm in some kind of trouble. They're going to tell me that I can't come to India anymore because you wrote this particular article and, it's not what we want, and so you can't come anymore. And then so I'm going like, well, let me take my chances. And I pick up, and he says, is this Stephen Knapp? I said, yes. Well, this is the Indian Embassy. And is this a good time to talk? I said, well, now that you got me up, I guess so. And so he says, well, very sorry. Well, we just want to make sure you're available. And I said, well, what's this about? And he wouldn't tell me. He said, my superior will contact you in a few minutes, and she'll talk to you. So then a few minutes later, and I'm dragging around because I'm just woke up. And she called and said, this is Stephen Knapp? I said, yes. Well, we want you to know that you just won the Padma Shri Award. So I'm going like, what? Really? She said, are you happy? That's like an understatement, And I said, yeah, I'm happy. I'm surprised and shocked even. And she said, well, we want to make sure that you're aware of it, but don't tell anybody, because the official announcement comes out tomorrow on the government website. So just be careful of that, and thank you very much. And meanwhile, some other devotees already knew something was happening because they called Jagat Guru, who was one of the temple officials in Detroit, asking for my phone number. So he knew something was up, but he didn't call me. And so then I wasn't sure whether to take this seriously or not. I'm going like, is this for real? Indian Embassy from Washington, D.C., it must be serious. So I didn't take it seriously until I saw the next day on the government website the listing of all the Padma awardees. And sure enough, down alphabetical order, number 123, Sri Stephen Knapp for Literature and Education in the USA. So then I knew it's official. So then I accepted it. And this whole verse reminds me that sometimes when you think you're down and out, you think you got no place else to go, you pray to Lord Krishna, and he gives you some other opportunity that you never even knew was coming. So, and I'm an example of that. I hope people don't think, well, he's just talking about himself and this and that. But it's relatable to me because Prabhupada said, as you gain realizations, you gain the experience and conviction of what you're understanding, that Krishna is real. So in this case, I prayed to Radhakunja Bihari, I prayed to my deities at home, and sure enough, they offered me another avenue of preaching work, because in the interviews that followed, when newspapers, they're announcing, because I was the only Westerner in all of North America to get the award. And even out of all that, all the 130, 140 people that got the Padma Awards, there was only like a few other Westerners that got it. So this is a rare situation, it's not something that happens every day. And the Padma Shri Award is the 4th highest civilian honor given by the government of India for distinguished service to basically Mother India. And the 3rd highest is the Padma Bhushan. The 2nd highest is Padma Vibhushan. And the highest is the Bharat Ratna. And this year they didn't award any Bharat Ratnas. So that's how the system works. And it's considered like a people's award because Narendra Modi chooses a panel of individuals to decide who gets the award after so many recommendations have been offered to them. And basically that's why I'm here in India right now, simply because last Monday I received the Padma Shri Award from President of India at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. And, but then again, during the registration for that, I was again offered the opportunity to preach to, I think it was Times of India and several other newspapers and television stations about the glories of Srila Prabhupada, about the glories of Lord Krishna, how due to the mercy of Srila Prabhupada is the only reason why I have the inspiration to, I say, share this knowledge of Vedic culture with others. So I was able to expand my preaching in that efforts. Now, the thing of it is, I say share because, as I'm certainly, I'm sure that you know that many Indian Hindus, they don't like the word preach. They don't like the word preach because they think that we're going out to convert people. Well, yeah, but instead of putting them on guard with that phrase, I always use the word share. How can they argue with that? I'm sharing this culture with others. I'm sharing it with people that might be interested. So how can they argue with that? But the point of it is, we have to preach because basically, in this day and age, if you don't promote what you're doing, you're going to be railroaded right out of town by those who do. Simple as that. There's a phrase in the publishing business that once an author, always a promoter. Simply because once you write a book, it may be the best book in the world, but if nobody knows about it, nobody's going to buy it. And a similar situation happened to me one time when I had books in a bookstore called the Bodhi Tree in Los Angeles. It's since gone out of business, but it had all these occult books and spiritual books and stuff like that. Somebody found a set of my books at the Bodhi Tree, and when he was reading it, he explained to some of his friends that I am angry because these books show me a level of spiritual knowledge that I've been looking for all my life. How come I didn't know about it before? So people are actually looking for this knowledge, and it's our duty to make sure that they have the advantage and the situation by which they can become aware of it. And there's so many different ways to do that. In fact, I'll tell you something you may not know, since I'm in contact with these organizations. But there's people within the RSS, the VHP, the Kalyan Ashram, Vivekananda Kendra, other organizations throughout India, and they look at ISKCON as a prime agency for the preservation and the promotion of Vedic culture. One reason is because we have no hesitancy to preach. We have no hesitancy to bring people in to understand what we have to offer, which is the true meaning of what Vedic culture is all about. Vedic culture is a wide avenue of spiritual pursuit, but our corner is Vaishnavism, Krishna consciousness, Bhakti Yoga, which is becoming broader and broader. I mean, you can see how many temples are coming up in India, how many people are interested, how many people are coming here. I mean, just the other night, I came into Vrindavan, and I was determined I'm going to get darshan of the deities. I couldn't even get up to the altar very easily because it was packed shoulder to shoulder. I mean, the last time I was in Vrindavan was 5 years ago. There's been a lot of changes since then. But the main thing is how many people are coming to this temple in particular, and many other temples as well, but this temple in particular has gone up in popularity immensely. So, and then the other day I was chanting outside of Prabhupada's Samadhi, and there was somebody that was kind of like yelling, shouting loudly as people were coming out of the temple. And I was wondering, what's all the commotion about? And then I looked over, and he was calling people to come into the museum and upstairs where they would sit down and chant in unison a whole round of japa. And I'm going like, oh, this is the way to do it. Get people's attention and draw them in so that they get a real taste of what Krishna consciousness is all about. Because it's important that they understand how to apply it to their lives. When I first started writing books, one of the mantras that I always used was, first of all, people need to understand what you're giving them. If they don't understand it, they'll never remember it. If they can't remember it, they'll never apply it to their lives. If they can't apply it to their lives, then basically you have missed your mark in conveying the message of Krishna consciousness or Vedic culture. We have to give this message in a way that people can understand, and give this message in a way that they can apply it to their lives. Then when they leave, they go back to wherever they're from, Delhi or wherever, they have a means of understanding how to apply it to their lives. This is what will make a difference in society at large. And this will help defend Vedic culture. Because one of the things I've also learned is that the other week there was the 50th anniversary of Krishna Balaram Mandir. And I have to admit, I think the management did a wonderful job in broadcasting the classes, the presentations, and the plays that took place here. Even though I was in Detroit, Michigan, I was looking at the presentations and the video coverage of the event. I felt like I was here. I felt like I was here watching everything that was going on, even though I was like 10,000 miles away. And it was very encouraging. And when I was watching that, I could feel like Krishna's Boma Lila is still going on today. At least the influence of Krishna's Boma Lila in the pastimes of Srila Prabhupada. That Boma Lila, that pastime of Lord Krishna, is still going on because Srila Prabhupada's mission, Srila Prabhupada's activities are part of Krishna's pastimes. And everybody who's helping out with the mission of Srila Prabhupada is part of Prabhupada's pastimes. So in this way, we need to know it's still going on. We're still a part of those pastimes. We're still conveying this information to others. And we're still a part of Krishna's Leela. So this is a great opportunity and a great blessing that we have to be a part of that. But in some ways also we have to understand that the battle of Kurukshetra may also be continuing to go on, part of Krishna's Leela. That doesn't mean the battle itself is going on, but the purpose and the reasoning behind preserving and protecting Vedic culture is still going on. Because as we can plainly see from a few days ago at Pahalgam, there are entities, I should say, there are elements in society, whether they be of particular religions, particular political parties, even certain politicians, that would like to see the diminishing or even the complete extermination of Hinduism and Vedic culture at large. And it is our mission to make sure that does not happen. It is a part of the protection of Mother India and the protection of its culture. Because without its culture, what is India? It's just another country struggling to survive. The real jewel of India is the culture, the traditional Vedic culture that has come down from time immemorial. And it's our duty to make sure that thrives in this land, because if it doesn't, then civilization is also, in some ways, greatly diminished. I wrote one thing for this class about the purpose of Vedic culture. And it's the development of civilization, the upliftment of consciousness, because civilization isn't a matter of getting ahead technologically or maintaining some craftsmanship or anything like that. It's the development of our consciousness which determines a civilization over another country or anything like that. So the development of civilization, which is the upliftment of consciousness, should not be a fight or even a competition, but it should be a united endeavor for the improvement and continued means to reach our full potential for one and all. This has always been the goal and motivation and purpose of Vedic culture and Vedic Dharma. Now, when we say Sanatana Dharma, what does that mean? That means different things to different people. Dharma itself can mean duty on a very basic level. But Dharma also is based on the root word of dri, which means balance. Balance, equilibrium, peace, and realization of who and what we are. Everybody, you've all heard that people, especially in the West, they want to find out what their purpose in life is. Well, the purpose in life is stated right there in the name, Sanatana Dharma. It's your eternal duty to find out who and what you are and what is your connection with the Supreme. And then act on that level. Act on that level, dharma, which is to maintain that mental state of consciousness by which you realize and act on a spiritual level, your connection with God. Prabhupada also mentioned that dharma means the laws and rules set by Krishna. So when Krishna told Arjuna to fight, he was fighting for dharma. He wasn't fighting for territorial superiority or resources or anything like that. He was simply fighting to maintain the rule of Lord Krishna, dharma, Vedic dharma. That's what it really is. And so we can only imagine if Arjuna hadn't stepped up and the soldiers hadn't stepped up to fight against adharma, or that which is against dharma, we can only imagine how evil the world could have been by now, at least, if that war had not taken place. So sometimes we need to speak strongly so that we create a fundamental unity of ourselves in ISKCON and in other organizations around the world, especially in India, so that we can pursue the preservation, this is my other mantra, the preservation, the protection, the promotion, for the perpetuation of Vedic culture. Now when I preach, I call those the 4 Ps, the 4 Ps that always come together. And we're especially known for the promotional aspect. There's nothing worse than swamis that sit in their ashram all day and don't go out and preach. They accomplish very little except to get fat. So we don't want that. We want to be active in some manner, way, or form. And there's so many ways that ISKCON protects the culture. As we can see here, broadcasting the 50th anniversary of Krishna Balaram Mandir, broadcasting the mission of Srila Prabhupada, the Harinam Sankirtan, extremely important, because Jiva Goswami explains, and I think it's the Bhakti Sandarbha, he says that many people first come in contact with the holy name through the Sankirtan process. They come here and they experience the upliftment of the holy names because it affects the soul. It directly reaches the soul. And they begin to hear it, and they become enlivened, and they don't even know why. It's because it's affecting them as an individual soul themselves. So, and Jiva Goswami also explains it's very important that the purity of the chanter must be taken into consideration, because it's the purity of the chanter who chants the names which enters into the soul of that individual, which then enlivens them. And then they become very ecstatic, and they want to chant and they want to dance. And this is what happens. So we need to make sure that our purity is of the essence, because the more pure we are, the more we can give this knowledge to others. The other thing is, just being a temple, our deity worship. Deity worship is spectacular here. So people who cannot become attracted to our deities of Krishna Balaram, Gaurnitai, Radhashama Sundar, who cannot be attracted to that? And of course the other thing is we're known for being the kitchen religion, those people that are engaged in cooking, offering to the deities, and distributing prasadam. Prabhupada was always adamant that when somebody comes to the temple, they always get Krishna prasadam, because it affects their consciousness, it affects their purity. He said even more important than trying to convince people to become vegetarian is simply to convince them to chant the holy name and give them Krishna prasadam. Once they become attracted to Krishna prasadam, why in the world would they go on, participating in a culture that's based on killing, animal eating? Why bother doing that when there's so many other alternatives? And don't give me this problem about, I don't get enough protein. Believe me, you get rice and dal and chapatis, that combines to give you enough protein. Too much protein causes breast cancer. Too much protein can cause prostate cancer in men. So everything in relativity. But the point of it is, once you experience the prasadam here at the temple, who can want to go back? So there's so many ways. Of course, we have, like that one devotee was calling everybody to go upstairs. chant one round of japa together. It was extremely powerful to hear that, because I was sitting outside and this whole group is chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That's what I was thinking. That's the way to do it. Get them up there one way or another. You know, so there's so many different avenues. Of course, books are the basis. The holy name is the basis of what Lord Chaitanya gave us. Books are the basis of what our acharyas are connected with. They all wrote so many books, and by writing books, distributing books, producing books, is the way we are connected with our whole parampara. So this is also very important. So this is the means by which we act in ways, and there's so many other ways now that are going on, whether it's working on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. So many devotees are out there reaching thousands of people on a daily basis simply by their activities of preaching in this way. Some people say that the internet is the streets now. We go to the streets to preach, and the internet is the way to do the preaching. And so, but still I feel that today we have a movement that can produce specialty preachers that specialize in one area or another. And we can all pick a particular process which is most conducive to our proclivities, our talents, our interests, our motivation to engage in spreading the mission of Srila Prabhupada. I remember one time, because I've gone on several different, many different tours of India, and sometimes I've always been hesitant to speak strongly amongst an ISKCON audience, because I'm never sure how they're going to take it. But amongst the Hindus, sometimes I speak very strongly, and they become enlivened by it. I remember at one event, my first lecture tour, which was organized by the RSS, by the way, helped me do my first lecture tour of India. And they set up everything. It was very organized. They set up my transportation, where I would stay, where I would give lectures. And I would give lectures at such a strong level that some people were saying it's good that you're moving from one place to another, because if your critics ever found out where you were, they might try to do you some harm. So I remember in Visakhapatnam, where there was the chief minister, there was the mayor of the town, there were some other government officials with an audience of about 200 people. And I was preaching about the glories of Vedic culture, the means to defend it, the reasons to defend it. And at the end I said, don't let me be the only one who feels strongly enough to stand up here and say that I am proud to be a Dharmist, a Sanatani, a Hindu, a Krishna Bhakta. And all of a sudden, so many other people in the audience also start getting up and saying, Jai Hind, Dharma Rakshati Rakshita, and so many things like that. And so after the lecture, even the chief minister came up and said how touched she was by what I had to say. And that we should all have the same kind of enthusiasm. And sometimes you can tell how people like the lecture by how many people want to come up and talk to you afterwards. And so this one person came up, and what he said was, when you were talking, I felt like you were the return of Vivekananda. And I'm not trying to be Vivekananda, because quite honestly, he said and did things that I don't approve of. But you can understand the conveyance of his compliment in what he felt I had to say. Because Vivekananda was a very bold preacher. He was somebody that helped enthuse Hindus for their own culture. And so anyway, he mentioned that to me. And I felt like something's happening now. Something is beginning to happen. I'm starting to relate to these people, or the people are starting to relate to me, but it's all a novelty because I was a Westerner saying this. And Vajpayee once told a friend of mine, David Frawley, who told me that as a Westerner, sometimes you can say things that we cannot say. And I was wondering, what does he mean by that? And then I learned that later on, because sometimes Indian sannyasis, they're expected to say certain things. You say certain things, and oh yeah, that's good. But then a Westerner comes along, and he says certain things, boldly defending and protecting the Vedic tradition, and they all become, oh, okay, well, what's happening? How was this Westerner saying these things? Because in my writing, I gave many books purely on Krishna consciousness. The Bhakti Yoga Handbook, Bhakti Yoga, The Art of Devotional Yoga, the Secret Teachings of the Vedas, straightforward Krishna consciousness. But then the odd thing happened was that many Indians also started to relate to what I had to say and how I said it, because I always tried to convey it in a conversational style, not an academic style, but a conversational style, and using many quotes from Shastra. I really appreciated how Jiva Goswami wrote his books. He would make a point and then substantiate it with Shastra. And that's the way I always did it too. So you could let the Vedic literature speak for itself and show that this is where this is said, this is where, you can find this reference and stuff like that. So the thing of it is when I came to India a few times on my own, spending my own money and everything, and so I wanted to continue coming to India, and I didn't have all that kind of money. So I was thinking, well, I can pray to Krishna, kindly give me money so I can come to India. But I thought, why should I bother Krishna with this kind of thing? He's got his own business going on. So then, so I prayed to Lakshmi. I have a big prayer book that you can find prayers to all these different devas and everything, and it's about 700 pages long. It's a big book with a lot of stotrams, gayatris, mantras. So I used some of those mantras for Gayatri, for Lakshmi, I mean, and ever since about the year 2000, I have never had. She didn't give me the money outright. Okay, that's what I was hoping for. I hope, give me the money and then I'll spend it on trips to India. But she always had somebody else pay for it. And many times the way it was paid for was that somebody would offer me to come and do a lecture tour of India, and we'll pay for your way, we'll pay for the flights and things like that. So then I would come and do the lecture tour, but then go on my own pilgrimage afterwards, do my business, make sure I give them their money's worth, and then go on my way to see what parts of India I haven't seen before. So it worked out pretty good that way. And even this trip, my 25th trip to India, and out of 20 trips, I haven't paid for any of them. And the government of India paid for my trip so I could attend the Padma Awards. So in other words, don't tell me this process does not work. I am fully convinced by experience that Krishna is real. This process works. The mantras work. It's simply a matter of application. But as it says in this verse, Krishna gives the blessings to those who are sincere. Just make sure your desire is sincere, your cause is humble, and you are sincerely trying to uplift the mission of Srila Prabhupada and the glories of Lord Krishna, and Krishna will provide a means by which you can continue doing your service. I'm fully convinced of that. And Prabhupada also said that it's a matter of conviction. Vedic culture is a process which expects you to have your own spiritual experiences. And Prabhupada also mentioned that. I think it was on a morning walk in Los Angeles. Some of you may know this story better than I. But he was asking the devotees, so, how do you know Krishna is God? And some of them were very smart. They said, because he says so in Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada said, no. Ooh. Okay. Because it explains in Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna is God. He said, no. How do you know Krishna is God? And he said, by the reciprocation. It is this reciprocation, this taste, this rasa that you get from service to Krishna, it gives you the means to become convinced that Krishna is God and this process works. It is simple as that. So this is what is required. And I can guarantee you, if you stick with it long enough, you'll have your own spiritual experiences. There's no doubt about it. If it works for me, it can work for anybody. Sometimes they call me Swamiji, sometimes they call me Dr. Knapp. I'm none of those things. Basically, I am just a devotee that has only one quality, and that is I simply never gave up. Never gave up. But of course, I kept refining the process. I kept refining the means by which I was preaching. I kept fine-tuning the books I was writing and stuff like that. And I have written some books that are mostly for an Indian audience. But that's how I became available and able to come to India so many times at someone else's expense. So, like I say, if it can work for me, it can work for you. Whatever your sincere desire is, it can happen. Krishna will fulfill that desire. Don't give up, and maybe someday you'll get the Padma Shri Award. And I hope in some ways this is an indication that it opens the channels for more devotees and more ISKCON recognition for this level of work. I admit that many times when writing books for an Indian audience, I wrote about topics that any Indian or any Hindu could relate to. It wasn't just about pure Krishna consciousness, but it was about the history of India. It was about recognizing the culture of India, in Vedic culture and other traditions around the world. I came out with a book called Proof of Vedic Culture's Global Existence. And that was ordered. They were having a thinkers meet in Hyderabad one year, and they wanted to order a whole case of those books, which I shipped to them, so that every major journalist and writer would get a copy of that book. And that was the next thing that happened. The next thinkers meet they had in Hyderabad, which was also attended by Manoharlal Joshi at the time, I was invited to at their expense. They wanted me to be a part of it, and that just kind of opened the doors for so many different opportunities after that. So we need to set up that kind of cooperation where people even outside of ISKCON. Prabhupada once said this. He said that many people will join our movement, but many people will not. But he said, that doesn't mean that simply because they don't join the movement, they aren't sympathetic towards the movement, or that they aren't supportive of the movement. We simply need to open the doors for that support and sympathy and communication so that they can also be a part of what we're doing. So we also need to be in the same line where we accept people. Okay, they may not accept all the rules and regulations, but they like what we're doing. They support us. They sympathize with us. They're going to be on our side when we need some help. So this is very important. So a very good example is what's called the, running late, almost over with. I'll just give you this one example. The Swami Dayananda Saraswati, from Coimbatore, who recently left this world a few years ago, he was a big, popular impersonalist. But because I came in contact with him, he liked what I was doing. And because at the time I was having trouble, my apartment had just been broken into, it had been completely ransacked, so many things were stolen. He helped me get the money together so I could get a new computer. In fact, somebody at his ashram gave me a new computer. And he set up a system by which his organization would send me enough money every month, which continued for 5 years, to pay my rent. Which to me simply gave me the opportunity to be free enough to continue with my service to Krishna and continue spreading Krishna consciousness. There's a big Mayavadi sannyasi helping me, a devotee. So why shouldn't I take that assistance? So it's a way that we can work with others. Doesn't mean we water down our philosophy. We don't do any of that. And here's another example of that. Swami Dayananda Saraswati also formed what was called the Acharya Sabha, in which 200 leaders of the most prominent lineages, paramparas, or mats, temples across India, would come together and deal with issues that affected all of them, whether it was the way the government was treating them, whether it was the future, whether it was the means to preserve and protect our culture, things like that. It wasn't that they all came together, tried to argue against each other's philosophy. That would be ridiculous. None of them are going to change for that. Or my philosophy is superior to yours or anything like that. They all came together simply to devise the means by which they can more efficiently operate in this country and preserve the culture of India. And I already knew about the Acharya Sabha. I didn't know that much about it. But then there was a devotee, another sannyasi, ISKCON, a Prabhupada disciple, who wanted to go into the Acharya Sabha. And they said, no, you cannot go. Because they have a rule that the math, the temple, or the lineage, or the representation of the lineage in the parampara must all be at least 200 years old. And ISKCON, we're getting there, 50 years now or more. We're getting there, but because of that, they wouldn't allow him in. But then he called me and let me know. He said, thank you for getting me into the Acharya Sabha. I says, why? What did I do? Because when they wouldn't let me in, I told them that I knew Stephen Knapp. And then they said, okay, come in. You can come in, you can observe, but you cannot participate. So he was able to go in and see how everything operated. And he said that there was a whole line of 200 Vyasasans, if you want to call them that, of all these representatives all coming together to work together for the common cause on the basic level. And so that I don't think that has happened since he has left this planet. But my idea is, why shouldn't ISKCON be in charge of that? Why shouldn't ISKCON make something by which we gather other lineages, other participants, other swamis, simply for one thing, aligning ourselves with the fundamental groundwork to create a substantial, what should I say, organization by which we all work together to promote Vedic culture and preserve and protect it. Doesn't mean we water down our philosophy, just like when I was getting rent money from Swami Subramanya Swami, he knew I wasn't going to change. He knew I was a Krishna Bhakta, and he even admitted that there were some philosophical differences that he didn't necessarily agree with. But he liked what I was doing. So he set me up like that, so that I would be able to continue working without always being fearful of how I'm going to get the money to do the job I was doing. So this is all an example of how we can work with others. Doesn't mean we give them respect out of the ordinary. Doesn't mean we acknowledge, because I've seen temples, believe me. I've seen temples where you can tell who the donors are by which deities are in the temple. Have you seen that before? You know who the donors are, you know, oh, he's a tantric, or he's a Shakti worshiper, or he's this or that. And they give money, and they want their own deity set up in the temple. And they also tried to do that in Detroit. And we just said, well, we don't do that here, so you'll have to go someplace else. But the point of it is, like I was saying, that many are those who may not join the movement, but are sympathetic and supportive to our cause, and we need to be able to work with them, because there's far more people that are supportive than we may know. So in that regard, I'd just like to leave you with that thought. And I want to assure you, I am not giving this class to create controversy. I am simply trying to spark some common sense, a new way of looking at things, because this is the way I've been preaching. And obviously, now that I've gotten the Padma Shri Award, somebody has been listening to me. Somebody has recognized my message. Somebody has appreciated it, and I'm just trying to share that with you. Like I say, I have no qualms against talking strongly in front of a basic Hindu audience, but I've never done that so much again in front of an ISKCON audience because I've never been sure about how it's going to be taken. So anyway, I hope you bear with me. I hope you get some benefit out of what I've had to say. And I can only hope that this award conveys the idea that the people in government realize what ISKCON is doing, how important we are, and it makes this stronger connection between ourselves and people of influence. I have to admit, I also was able to meet Narendra Modi. I'll just leave you with this one last thought. And because after the ceremony, when we get the awards, we were ushered into the Ashok room in the Rashtrapati Bhavan, which is the most beautiful room in the whole building. And we're lined up, all the Padma Shris on one side, then the president comes in, the vice president comes in, they take a center seat, then we get a group photo. Then the Padma Bhushans do the same thing. Then we're lined up in a hall where the president comes down one aisle and down the other, greeting and congratulating everybody. But then Narendra Modi came in, and he went up one side of the row and then down the other. And when he got to me, I offered my pranams like this, and he took my hands in his, and his hands were very soft, very delicate in some ways. But he took my hands in his, and he said, "So, more research is going on?" I was like, wait a minute. He knows me. He knows what I'm doing. He's obviously done some research on what I do. And he says, "So, some more research is going on?" I says, "Oh, yeah. In fact, I have some books that I want to give to you through your assistant." And he says, yes, please send them. And then he went on to the next person. But it was like so touching that, he was already had some familiarity with me and what I was doing. So in that regard, we can also understand how much familiarity he had with the likes of Gopal Krishna Maharaj, Jayapataka Swami, Radhanath Swami. He already knows how much ISKCON is doing. And so in that regard, if we continue to cultivate them, cultivate the people that, like I said, may not join ISKCON, but they support us. They sympathize with us. They like our cause, then the more powerful ISKCON can become. Simple as that. And I want to see ISKCON expand. I want to see Prabhupada's movement become more powerful. I want to see us have a bigger influence in the world. And there's many different ways to do that. And I'm just suggesting a few of them right here, that's all. So anyway, for this Saturday, the 3rd of May, Krishna Balaram Mandir, that's class. This is Sri Nandanandana, Stephen Knapp, signing out. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories. Thank you very much. I never like to keep anybody away from prasadam, so I don't like to go too far over time.
Prabhu, I have one question, please.
Okay. I have some pamphlets here. Anybody can take these. I have a few, and I got more in my room if necessary. But you can go to my website, and all of my books are available on Amazon. Most of them are available in paperback and Kindle ebooks, especially for those in India, because Kindle is very cheap, or paperbacks is a little too expensive for many of the Indian audience. But I have a big website with a lot of free articles and information on it. So if anybody's interested, they can take one of these and find out more about it that way. So thank you very much, everybody. And God bless, Krishna bless, Prabhupada bless you all in your service. And may we continue to expand and increase the mission and influence of Srila Prabhupada.